Welcome to Reckless, from Wildflower, Rooted and Reckless, the podcast where Angela Walker sets dumpster fires and lets her light shine. Unafraid of hard conversations, this is where perspectives are challenged, minds are opened, and respect is the rule. Because agree to disagree is more than a motto.
Hello and welcome to Reckless from the Wildflower, Rooted and Reckless podcast. I am Angela Walker. Today is episode 8 and it is Thursday, November 20th. It is the Thursday before my favorite holiday, Thanksgiving, the dirty foot of the holidays. If you haven't seen that episode, go check it out. I love Thanksgiving. I'm super excited for it. This will be my last episode until the new year. Take the holidays off, a little hiatus, so I can recalibrate, if you will, and get ahead on some recording and just keep delivering. If you've only ever listened to Reckless and you don't know, I do actually have 2 other podcasts that drop on Tuesday. Wildflower is a storytelling type podcast, and then Rooted is a Bible study podcast that drops on Wednesday. So you can go back through and listen to those if you just miss me that much. Otherwise, I assume you, like myself, will be super busy over the next month and a half. So today we're going to talk about labels. Have you ever noticed how everyone wants a label? Everybody wants a label until it's used against them. We have turned self-discovery into self-branding, and then we wonder why we're exhausted. So today, as we talk about labels, we're going to talk about the ones we chase, the ones we reject, and the irony of wanting to be understood without being judged. Also, just as a warning, this could sting a little. I might step on some toes, mine included. If it hurts, it's probably because it's true. There's a few reasons as to why we love labels. Humans crave belonging and clarity. Labels give us a shortcut to that. So labels like mom, business owner, Jesus lover, chaos coordinator, trauma survivor, hormonal roller coaster, recovering people pleaser, whatever it is our way of saying, please don't make me explain myself from scratch every day. And the truth is, labels are comforting until they become cages. Because despite all my rage, I am still just a rat in a cage. Is that how that goes? It's interesting because people seem to think that label is like a mirror, right? When you look at the mirror, what do you see? But I would challenge that because it might feel like a mirror that then becomes a mask. But really, a label is essentially what you deem yourself because you want other people to see that about you, whether you reflect it or not. If you're walking the walk, you don't need a label. People can see that anyway. You can see that about yourself anyway. You don't have to tell anybody about it. A label is kind of like a shortcut. It's like trying to get called Miss America without doing all the things to become Miss America. If you're labeling yourself something, there's probably something else going on you need to work on. Probably going to edit that part out. Although it is very reckless. I think sometimes a label too can be like a look over here at this shiny object. I'm such a good volunteer. And really it's not just for everybody else, it's for yourself too, right? So you're all distracted over here. But on the other hand, there are things catching on fire that you're not dealing with, that you're not seeing, that you're not focusing on, because you have found a strong label to hang on to and to drive your identity through. And in that, I'm really talking to myself as well. Like mom was my top label. I earned it young and I could just hide behind that. I could coast behind that. I was good at that. But there were other things, words, labels, whatever you want to say. But there were other things that were catching on fire in the background that I wasn't paying any attention to. I didn't have to. I was floating high over here on the mom cloud. I didn't have to pay attention to those things. And that's dangerous. I love a good irony. Life for me happens in ironies. It is truly, everything is a double-edged sword. Everything is a double-edged sword. Labels included, right? There's a lot of hypocrisies. We say, don't judge me, but we also say, here's my label. Please validate it. We put our mental health, our trauma, our sexuality, our faith, our politics, all in these neat little jars. And then we get mad when people read the label that we slapped on. We post our, I'm not like other moms, but heaven forbid someone actually treat us like we're different. I think this is really apparent in a couple of arenas. I think it's really interesting too, because I don't know that there's any real solid like law as far as like what check boxes need to be checked to have earned a certain label. Okay. So I think right now politics is probably one of the most glaring places where I'm seeing this. And you have the obvious, right? The Republicans and the Democrats. And then you get into like pro-life, pro-choice, Black Lives Matter, all lives matter, with this whole label epidemic. We have like a paradox, right? The don't judge me paradox, I like to call it. We say, don't judge me, but we hand people a checklist of how we want to be perceived. She, her, trauma survivor, ADHD, Christian, but not religious, crunchy, but not weird, introverted, extrovert, introverted, extrovert. We tell the world exactly how to label us, and then we tend to lose it when they actually do. We crave validation, but we resent the mechanism that gives it to us. We want to be known deeply, but only by the parts we pre-approved. We want all the labels. We want access to all the labels, but only we want to label ourselves. And we only want people to call those labels by what we call them. But yet we want to call people by the labels that we have made up for them. That's the biggest hypocrisy of all. We don't hate judgment. We hate misjudgment. We've built a culture that says, be real, but only if it's a relatable real. Cry on camera, but make sure your mascara is waterproof. Be vulnerable, but not messy. Tell your story, but not if it makes people uncomfortable. We're out here filtering our authenticity through templates and hashtags like hashtag unfiltered. It's not real anymore. Everything is branded. We've branded ourselves. We've turned our brokenness into marketing strategies and our healing into highlight reels. Everyone says, find your tribe. And I get it, because community matters. But most of us don't actually want community. We want confirmation. We're not looking for connection anymore. We're looking for agreement. We say, find your people. But what we really mean is find people who won't challenge your narrative. We build echo chambers and we call it belonging. The second someone disagrees or doesn't fit our label list, we exile them and then cry about cancel culture. It is identity whiplash. We preach self-acceptance while constantly rebranding ourselves. We say, don't box me in, and then build prettier boxes with better fonts. We chase labels because they make us feel seen and then resent them when we outgrow them. And instead of evolving, we double down because God forbid anyone thinks we're faking it. We confuse changing our mind with changing our worth. We tell people only God can judge me, and then spend half of our time judging ourselves harder than He ever would. We say we believe in grace until it's our turn to receive it. We say God loves me as I am, and then hustle to earn a label that proves we're lovable. That's the irony. We're fighting so hard not to be judged that we forget we were never built to be defined. We're labeling ourselves to death and then calling it self-awareness. And we've all been caught in it. We've all been caught in it. Me, you, the entire internet. And sometimes the work isn't ripping off every tag. It's figuring out who put them there in the first place. The dangerous thing about labels is they box out growth. If you decide you are the anxious one, you stop looking for peace. If you decide you're the strong one, you stop asking for help. Transformation literally means outgrowing titles or labels. And transformation is how we grow through our life experiences. Sometimes we are clinging to the identity that protected us. And sometimes we're still clinging onto that identity long after it has started to suffocate us. So, all right, let's talk about how to actually unlabel yourself. And spoiler alert, it's not some woo-woo affirmation thing where you light sage and chant your numbers backwards. Call your own bluff. Call your own bluff. Half the labels we wear aren't even true anymore. They're just habits. You keep saying you're the anxious one, the fixer, the strong one, the people pleaser. Girl, that is not a personality. That is a trauma resume. You outgrew that version of yourself. Stop introducing yourself by your wounds. You do not have to lead with the worst thing that ever happened to you when you meet someone. You are not your diagnosis, your divorce, your debt, or your DMs. You can honor your story without auditioning for a victim role you no longer play. Quit performing your personality. If you have to announce that you're the chill one, you're probably not that chill. If you have to remind everyone that you're the nice one, you're probably swallowing resentment for sport. The real you doesn't need a press release. She just shows up. Catch the always and never statements. I always mess this up. I never finish what I start. That is not humility. That is hypnosis. You've repeated it so many times, your brain thinks it's a command. Change the script. Start small. We've all heard this. You do not have to be perfect. You just have to stop lying to yourself about who you are not anymore. Ask God who you are and be ready for an answer that wrecks your comfort zone. Whether you believe in God or not, whether you call him God, whether you call him higher power, whatever it is, you want truth? Ask the one who wrote your blueprint. Just know he's not going to hand you a label. He'll hand you an assignment, and assignments don't fit neatly on t-shirts or Instagram bios. You're probably going to go through a storm, so get your umbrella, okay? Okay. Let people mislabel you and stay unbothered. Oh. Dancing on my toes. Freedom starts when you stop running PR for your own personality. Let them misunderstand you. Just let them. You're not for everybody, and you were never meant to be. Do something label defying on purpose. If you're the quiet one, speak up. If you're the strong one, cry. If you're the dependable one, cancel the plans. Shock your system a little. Remind your soul it is not boxed in. I feel like that is a huge part of the season that I am in. Sometimes not consciously, where, or not intentionally, where I had to be quiet when normally I would speak up. And I cried in situations where normally I would shine as somebody strong and unbothered or unfazed. I didn't realize it at the time, but that is exactly what I was working through. So yeah, unlabeling yourself isn't about becoming someone new. It's about remembering the parts of you that got buried under everyone else's definitions. You were never the brand. You were the story. And stories don't need stickers. They have chapters. Look, the goal is not to erase every label. Some of them helped you survive, but you don't have to keep living under survival tags when you're finally safe enough to bloom. Maybe you were the fixer. The quiet one, the reliable one, the one who held it all together while nobody noticed you were unraveling. That version of you deserves a thank you, not a lifelong contract. So as you walk away from this episode, I want you to do one thing. Release the labels that make you smaller. The truth is, you're not the words they chose for you. You're not even the words you've chosen for yourself sometimes. You are a story in motion. You're becoming. Your story is constantly being written and sometimes in crossroads rewritten. And that's where I'm leaving this season, right in the middle of the rewrite. Because honestly, that's the real part, the messy middle, the space between what was and what's next. We talk a lot about beginnings and endings, but most of life happens in the in-between, where you're not who you were and not quite who you're becoming. That's where growth hides. That's where the good stuff lives. So this is the pause before the next chapter. So that's where I'm leaving this, right here in the middle, reminding people that they're not the only ones still trying to figure it out. Until then, though, do me a favor. Stop taking yourself so seriously. Loosen the grip. Laugh at the nonsense. Live out loud. Have a happy, happy Thanksgiving. A Merry Christmas. A Happy New Year. I will see you next season.
You've been listening to a Wildflower Rooted and Reckless podcast production with Angela Walker. Catch Wildflower drops on Tuesdays, Rooted on Wednesdays, and Reckless on Thursdays. Subscribe wherever you listen. Stay wild, stay rooted, stay reckless.